Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Marketing Jedis, a podcast series by InMobi in association with Microsoft. I'm Kunik Patel and I lead the industry sales at InMobi. We have an inspiring conversation lined up for you today. I'm excited to welcome our guest, Prashant Sukhwani, Head Brand and Communication at Burger King Corporation. Prashant is a seasonal marketer with a demonstrated history of excelling in the consumer good and food retail industry. He's skilled in brand and marketing management, business strategy, digital marketing, brand launches, market research, and innovations management. He is experienced in handling both flagship and fledgling brands with complex value chains. With more than 50 awards in his career so far, he has been a jury member for leading industry awards as well as guest lecturer in leading B schools. So welcome, Prashant. So glad to have you in with us in today's podcast. To kick off this conversation, we would love to know about your own journey in the consumer marketing and advertising industry. How did you get started?
So, firstly, thank you so much, Kunik. Those were really kind words that you just said. And even before I start, it's a collective effort between the teams and people together. So, all credit to all the people that I've worked with in the past and currently for everything that I've achieved. Now, coming back to something about me. So, I started this entire journey with Colgate Palmolive in 2009, where I was the summer intern there. And during my summer internship, the project was the goal of the entire organization, which was increasing numeric distribution. Now, FMCG sales is something that happens on the ground, not really in front of a laptop. So those 3 months of my internship really threw me into the field, working closely with the salesman on ground, understanding how the entire sales cycle happens from the company's end, from the consumer's end, and really got me started there. Post which, after my MBA, I joined ITC, and I was very privileged to really be a part of their management training program. Now, the beauty of this program is for the first 1 year, they start off with you as a walking salesman, graduating to a cycle salesman, and all the way up to an area sales manager. So, what happens in this journey is you start off right at the grassroots level, all the way to becoming a manager and understanding the entire value chain in between. From there, I became the brand manager for Mangaldeep Agarbattis, and I was in Chennai. And that was probably one of the best periods wherein everything about brand management. So sales so far was taken care of by my stints at Colgate and the management trainee. And then becoming a brand manager really enabled me to understand the linkage between what the consumer wants, what happens in reality, and how the function works as an organization, right? So that linkage, I believe, is very important for any brand person. One of the highlights at that point of time was me launching Mangaldeep 2 and it becoming a 100 crore brand in 15 months. So that's one of the highlights of mine, and I'm really proud of that achievement. Post which I came back to Bombay. I was at Bungay for almost 6 years, where I was a senior marketing manager, and I also had headed innovations for them. In those 6 years, a lot of brand launches, almost three different launches slash relaunches in 18 months, and then handling the entire portfolio from Gagan to Dalga to Chambal, and then finally moving on to Burger King, which almost happened 2.5 years ago. And I've been heading their brand and com since then, and working with some really creative people, a really interesting business of food retail. So almost after a decade of FMCG coming to QSR, and since then been doing some very interesting work, learning myself, and now in front of you. So that's pretty much my synopsis.
Quite an inspiring journey, Prashant. So glad to hear that journey of yours. As a marketing leader today, how has your industry evolved overall and more specifically from a technological standpoint?
So, Kunik, what I've seen is there was a point of time where technology or digital marketing or this entire 1-0 space, right? That's the byte, was very concentrated. And the information and the understanding was also very limited to, say, agency partners or very specific
Yeah,
people who maybe took keen interest in this. But today,
right.
what I've seen in my circles, especially, is the democratization of digital marketing, wherein more and more brand marketers are comfortable in understanding digital marketing, in adopting the economics behind it, and being able to craft campaigns which are linked to their objectives and the buying models available, right? So this trend, this shift that I've seen of democracy of this platform, which now is almost equal or maybe bigger than offline marketing itself, right?
Right.
Is this one trend which I'm seeing growing more and more as I interact with more and more marketing people around me. And this actually is good for everyone, because rather than information being concentrated, the more people are aware, are using it, the better it proliferates. And this penetration will
Yeah.
then increase overall better campaigns, better efficiencies, and reaching out to guests. So that is one big trend.
Right on, Prashant. You hit the nail in the head. Moving on to the next question, Prashant, could you tell us, could you please dwell on the core reason why do you think ad tech is indispensable in the digital world today?
Okay, so ad tech, if you look at it, is a set of supply side. There's a demand side. There is a platform. There are many components to this ecosystem, and what ad tech allows us to do is measurability, right?
Right.
So as more and more budgets are going towards performance marketing, where there used to be marketing which was brand saliency and television and GRPs and a lot of other measurements which allowed us to have some idea of what exactly is happening with our spends. What AdTech allows us to do is get exact ROIs. And
Yeah.
what it allows us to do is live in this transparent world where you have very clear insights available. The consumer funnels are already defined, and thus it helps you sharp target which part of the funnel you're wanting to address. And what it
Right.
allows us to do is reach out to the right audiences quickly. So there's a lot of efficiency and effectiveness. There's a lot of measurability, and thus it leads to more and more optimized campaigns. So what
Right.
in a nutshell, in layman's term, what it allows me to do is have better dispersion of the marketing budgets. It allows me to reach my TG rather than having spillovers, and thus it allows me very measurable returns, which can then be further backed with more budgets and getting more campaigns out there. So that is one summation of ad tech and how important it has become to brands like Burger King, which are more operating in a TG of 15 to 34. So the millennials
Right.
and the Gen Z, who technically are all across the digital space, right?
Correct.
So the ad tech really allows us to do good campaigns, targeted campaigns, and effective ones.
Absolutely, rightly said, as you mentioned, Prashant. We have a follow-up question on that previously asked question. Since a lot of has happened in the past year since the onset of the pandemic, there has been restructuring that has happened in this space, and now things being completely digital, there has been a lot of challenges that companies have faced to get to digital, and more specifically, mobile marketing maturity. Can you share insights from your experience in this past last 1 year?
Okay, so COVID happened to all of us, right? And
Yeah.
it came as a whirlwind where nobody knew exactly how to move ahead. And what we realized is, so what's happening in today's consumer's life? Everyone was on mobile. We have seen the numbers. We have seen the jump in as simple as the total hours spent per week on mobile. And then
Right.
similarly to the genres in television, we have also seen different kinds of apps, whether it's the gaming app, whether it's the news app, whether it's entertainment. And we have seen all these different genres exploding with more and more audiences available. Now, as marketers, the tenet of marketing is simply going to an aggregation of your audiences and reaching out to them with the right communication. So, what COVID did was technically preponement of certain speed at which we would adopt digital marketing. It allowed us to really look back at our campaigns and see the mix, the marketing mix that we are using. And what it also allowed us to do was reach out to more audiences at better efficiencies. I'm talking about in terms of whether it's CPMs or whether it's the CPE model, whichever model you're looking at. And COVID actually enabled the entire industry to realize that yes, digital has a big role to play in your objectives, and yes, this is the time to really put your money behind it. Because what happens in traditional marketing is there is this fear, especially in senior management, wherein they wouldn't know really the ROI that you can get. And with this
Right.
COVID, it really left us no choice, firstly. And secondly, what it also allowed was to push the envelope of digital marketing across. And I'm not just talking about my brand, I'm talking about across categories, across FMCG, across traditional and conservational marketing firms as well, who realized the value in this. What it allowed
Right.
us to do at Burger King was do a lot of these campaigns, which really were pertinent to the need of the hour. So, for example, at that point of time, there was a lot of safety concerns, which started off firstly.
Mm.
So whether it's
Right.
safety videos or safety posts on social media, or just creating a content asset out there which talks about our standards and our food and our quality measurements, you could all put it out there for consumers to consume. What we also did was a lot of engagement ideas, whether it was reassuring Whopper, wherein the next objective for us was to increase sales via the delivery platform. And what we realized was the first step is for the consumers to believe that COVID is not something that would spread vehemently if you start ordering food in, right? And that's
Right.
how it opened up for us. So to give further impetus to delivery and to give further assurances to our guests, we did a reassuring Whopper, wherein, say, for example, if Kunik buys one Whopper, Kunik can nominate someone else anywhere, and we would deliver Whopper to them. So both of them could actually
Got
get a Whopper together and share that moment digitally, of course, like what we are doing right now, but have that moment
Right.
in a time when everyone is locked in. We did something like Bail Me Out BK. Now, what was happening over here is we saw a trend of a lot of DIY, do it yourself. We saw people making affogatos, we saw people doing gardening, we saw people doing a lot of cooking and experimenting with cuisines,
Right.
but not all experiments are successful. So we also realized that one of the biggest things consumers are facing are the failures in cooking, right? And we said, no problem. This is the time to really cook your heart out and experiment, and just tag us to all your failures, and a Whopper will be out for you. So we actually
Right.
rewarded guests to go ahead and make failures and enjoy themselves. One more thing that we did was, and this was more of augmented reality towards the end of 2020, we did something called Flame Grill 2020. So Grill by 2020 was the campaign name, wherein all you had to do was open a filter on Instagram and you could just burn up anything that the camera is seeing. And what we said in that campaign was 2020 really killed a lot of your plans, a lot of your trips, some weddings, you name it, and we had plans for that, and they got canned. And here was one
Right.
campaign which allowed people to really burn those memories up and get a Whopper instead. So
Right.
again, COVID, very, very interesting phase for all of us, very learning phase for us marketeers, and gave us new opportunities to engage with consumers in a manner what they were doing at that point of time, and also contextualizing what was happening. So that's one thing that we adopted, and we got some good awards around it as well. So I guess the consumer was happy,
Yeah.
the brand was happy, and at the end of the day, the industry also recognized it.
Absolutely, Prashant. And continuing on the same topic, how has the advent of apps transformed the brand audience relationship in terms of awareness, acquisition, engagement, and more? And we have
So
a follow-up question to that as well. Probably I'll let you finish the first part, then probably I'll bring up the second part as well. Please
surely.
go
So
on, Prashant.
what I was saying was, COVID. We were already in progress of launching our app, and what
Yeah.
COVID did was prepone it by 1 quarter. So
Hmm.
very interesting question, and we launched our BK app around June 2020.
Correct. Yeah.
At that point of time, and what we realized was today more and more people are looking for known brands. They are looking for robust and stringent safety protocols, and that could come with brands like us, right? And
Right.
what people are also looking at is convenience. Now, convenience has been a theme for Indian consumers for the last almost a decade. And what we are seeing is more and more channels opening up to address this convenience, right? And
Sure.
we as a brand also wanted to become omni-channel. So for us, whilst we have a dine-in experience to brick and mortar, we also have aggregator platforms where we are present. And we realized that we need an app to promote our products, to reach out to consumers and give them yet another opportunity to order Burger King. So that was
Right.
something very interesting that happened. I would want you to continue with your second question so that I can
Sure.
just link the two together and give you whatever you're seeking here.
Absolutely. The second part is just a precursor in terms of the question already asked. So, how has your team company dealt with this transformation?
Okay, so I remember using three words: awareness, acquisition, and engagement. So,
Correct.
firstly, all three of them require different content strategy, maybe the same platform, but different creative within that platform strategy and different audience strategy. So, what we have learned very clearly is that if you're going for an acquisition campaign, your awareness campaigns won't do that for you. They won't.
Right.
That's not how the platforms are built in the first place. So you
Correct.
have to be very clear in terms of what objective you're chasing and what kind of platforms and creatives work for that. For example, if you're looking at awareness, then you can still make use of all your social media, whether it's YouTube or whether it's a 10-second or a 30-second long
Right.
format content. They can work for awareness. But if you believe that this content pieces can let you acquire or help you install your app, that's not going to be the case. That
Absolutely.
is more led by UAC. It's more led by pixel campaigns. There's an entire different segment of campaigns, of performance campaigns available for you, right? So you have to be very clear in what you're promoting and what kind of content you're doing. What we also realize is that engagement again works on a very different platform. and you need to give more and more user generated content opportunities. And that's what we have been doing, wherein we try to
Right.
run one UGC campaign every month for us. Or even when we are doing big launches, we ensure that there is some kind of engagement where the consumers are co-creating content with us and helping us achieve our objectives. So that is very important to distinguish all these three words and what goes behind it in terms of campaigns. With respect to our
Right.
company, yes, we launched our app probably a quarter before the timelines. What we also realized was this app allowed us to do a lot of exclusive things for our guests. So whether it's a new launch which happens first on the app, or whether it's a secret menu that is only available on the app, or whether it's exclusive deals and offers, there's so much more that the guest is looking out for with the brand, and that could be addressed directly via the app. You're at home, you want to order, there's the delivery section for you. Maybe you want to
Right.
do a takeaway, there's a takeaway section for you. Maybe you're at the restaurant and you don't want to stand in a queue, but you just want to open the app and place your orders. That's also a feature available on the app. And what we also did was we had a loyalty program. So probably one of the first burger brands to really have a loyalty program, wherein every rupee that you spend was a rupee earned. And this
Right.
earning of crowns, so every 1 rupee equal 1 crown, and all these crowns could be collected, and then you could get free food, free delivery, and a plethora of things around this loyalty program. So that's something that we did as well. And finally, what it allowed us to do was do a lot of campaigns via the app. So, for example, we did Flame Grill 2020, which was augmented reality filter using social media, Instagram and Facebook. What we did now recently was something called Hack the Game. So we hacked cricket. So what was happening was you could open the Burger King app and you could click on a banner and it would take you to this augmented reality filter where whilst watching cricket live, depending upon the moment which is happening in the cricket, whether it's a four, whether it's a six, whether it's a wicket, whether it's a dot ball, right, whether it's a run, all these things were fed into this system, and against each of them you would get one offer, and each of these offers were different. So whether it's a team scoring
Got it.
50 or 100 or a 150, right? And so what's
Right.
happening now is, yes, you're watching cricket, you also at that point of time have a higher incidence of ordering from outside, and that's where the Burger King app allowed you to collect free food and other offers and redeem it as well. And all the validity for this was 24 hours. So right before the
Right.
next match, these would be purged. So now what we tried to do was gamify the entire cricket content available to you. It allowed us to really reach out to our guests and distribute a lot of coupons, because couponing is a very important sales promotion tool for QSRs. It allowed
Right.
us to see the traction each of these coupons is getting and see the redemptions as well. And that allowed us to further fine craft our future campaigns. So that's something that we did. And if you talk about numbers, we got some 9 million impressions for this campaign. But impressions is something that we all know how it works. What's the most important thing for us was the 50,000 gameplays. So there were
Right.
50,000 times this game was played by different guests who were actually opening their app, watching live cricket, and collecting offers depending upon what's happening in
Right.
the match. So that's something also that we did.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm sure a lot of marketers listening into this podcast today will take back and note down a lot of these innovation points that Burger King has been engaged with. And probably these are some of the innovations that actually are what defines the mobile environment in today's world. Prominently, most of the brands are not even aware in terms of what are the possibilities that one can engage with the audiences, and and also, as you rightly mentioned, that you need to have an objective in mind while selecting a particular platform, because you cannot have a single creative or a single awareness campaign driving all the mid and bottom funnel KPIs for you as well. I think those are two important points that you raised, and I think most of the people listening into the podcast should actually take into consideration while running their campaigns on this particular platform. So great points, Prashant. Great to hear those. Now moving on to the data side of things, the data is something that fuels an organization, right? So we wanted to hear from you in terms of, please share more in terms of the role of data-driven insights and analytics in marketing for Burger King. How are you changing the game, as well as how has Burger King leveraged AdTech for growth and ride on this wave to stay ahead of its competition?
Okay, so I'm going to say it with an example. Firstly, our competition is fantastic. They're doing some
Yeah.
fabulous work. We have, in fact, just begun our journey, and we are improving each day. So kudos to all the competition out there for really doing such inspiring work and enabling us to learn more and push ourselves to get better each day. Now, with respect to AdTech, so we launched a stunner campaign, which is our rupees 50 value layer recently in July. And what we did was we did something very interesting, wherein awareness was the objective, YouTube was the platform, and a mix of 10 and 20 seconders were the creative edits. Now, what we did was our media agency partner leveraged artificial intelligence optimization stack on this. Now, what basically it did was there was a certain audience segmentation, right? And it was built upon affinity and in market and certain customs that we had created. And these would enable effectiveness to reach out to the right audience at the right time. And at the same time, the AI tool, what we enabled the tool to do was have the final bidding and budget decisions. So what the tool in its place did was it dynamically targeted high value inventory, right?
Got it.
So when it's a dynamic targeting, the tool actually has control on seeing what the bids are going at, and getting that audience that we are getting, so that we get more and more efficiency. So
Right.
this is one ad tech tool I would want to talk about, which we did. And why I want to talk about this is because of the numbers that I'm going to throw now. The end result for this was 2x CTRs, 9% decrease in CPMs. We did a BLS around this, and there was a 31% lift on ad recall and 7.4% increase in purchase intent. So we
Wow.
as a brand are constantly looking forward for our agency partners to come to us with solutions which have ad tech in nature, right? We are pushing them to give us more and more solutions which allow machine learning or artificial intelligence. And we are more than happy to have a certain portion of budget open for experiments completely, because the
Right.
environment is growing at such a fast pace that the tried and tested methods are great. But if you don't really keep investing in learnings for the brand, learnings for the marketplace, learnings for the guest, learnings for yourself as a marketer, you would suddenly realize that the playbook is one thing that you're doing, but everyone else has moved ahead. So we really look
Right.
forward to these kind of campaigns. It really teaches us a lot, and at the end of the day, it's delivering as well. So this was an example which I wanted to tell you guys.
Awesome. Awesome, Prashant. Moving on to the next question. How can marketers strike a balance while driving innovation in the QSR sector specifically?
Okay, so QSI is all about food, and food is all about taste. It's about emotions. It's about mood, and you can't predict such things, right? So it's
Right.
very important that we as marketers are tapping on to new consumer trends, new consumer tastes. There might be cuisines, and you can see it around you. For example, molecular gastronomy was something which has exploded in the last 3 to 4 years, and now people are doing a fondue vada pav. I mean,
Yeah.
there are so many innovations happening around you that we as a brand also need to strike a good balance between our core products, and at the same time keep doing more and more in terms of giving that repeat customer who's walking into a restaurant something new, something different, something that they would want to try at that point of time. Now, one thing
Right.
that we keep doing is a limited time Whopper. So Whopper is a flagship product. It's
Right.
unlike any other burger, and that's why we say it's called a Whopper. It's not a burger. That's a proposition
Right.
around it. And whilst you have your veg and chicken and mutton versions to it, what we also do is keep changing every 90 days the entire build itself. So you can have the normal Whopper and you can have the limited time Whopper. Now, in these
Right.
limited time Whoppers, we keep bringing new flavors like peri peri, like masala, which is more on the Indian taste profile. For example, it could be a boss Whopper, which is a very loaded Whopper. And what we keep doing over here is every time somebody is walking in, especially a Whopper consumer, he has something new to look forward to, right? So we
Right.
we uh, we we had a Whopper called the Twisted Whopper. Now, Twisted is a concept; it's not really a taste cue. And in that
Right.
Twisted, suddenly when you bite into it, you will get a very sweet and a spicy note at the same point of time. So that's one layer that we keep focusing on to keep giving varied experiences to our guests. At the same time, what we are also doing is plugging portfolio gaps. So wherever we feel that there is a certain product that could be added. It could be in any food format. It could be in any taste profile. We bring it in it. For example, the stunner menu that we have launched, it has a volcano. Now, the volcano product is a crunchy shell. And within the crunchy shell, there would be veggies, there would be sauces, there would be patty. And the taste is something unlike that you have eaten in any other restaurant out there. And that's something that we launched in as part of the stunner menu, the value layer, the rupees 50 stunner menu. And that
Right.
has really done well for us. So that's pretty much in a nutshell. We, as a food brand, have to innovate. We have to look at what is the recent trend in consumers. For example, during the COVID, one thing that came out was guests are looking forward to go back to their comfort foods, right? Because when
Right.
you're looking at periods of uncertainty, when you're looking at periods of anxiety, periods of unknown, right? That's the time when you go back to what you know and what brings you
Correct.
comfort and what brings you a smile on your face. And that's the
Right.
point where we realize that a lot of chocolate flavors could be introduced in desserts. So keep looking at trends, keep looking at the consumer realities, and build products which excite them in terms of taste. That's a mantra.
Got it, Prashant. Got it, Prashant. So moving on to the next question. In fact, it has three parts to it. Uh, what innovations are you most looking forward in the ad tech space, and what are the trends to watch out for this for this in this space, and how will that affect the segment in the next 5 years?
Wow, that's quite a loaded question. So the way I'm going to address it, we have seen a certain democratization of digital marketing, and that's all thanks to more and more ad tech coming and becoming relevant to all of us. What I'm seeing right now are 3 points. One is privacy. So what's happening is as more and more countries dwell into the regulations of privacy in this environment, right? Whether
Right.
it's the brand, whether it's the marketer, whether it's the agency partner, whether it's the guest, whether it's the platform itself, we all
Correct.
have to work towards making this more secure, more safe, and more private for all of us, right? So that's one trend which I see, which will take more and more shape as we grow ahead. And what we realize is there would be a lot of rules and regulations. Some may be good for us as marketers, some would be great for the consumer, and that balance of how do we still continue our campaigns and at the same time ensure that the adherences to these regulations are, that's a fine balance that would definitely take a lot of our time. That's one. The
Right.
second thing that I'm seeing as a trend is contextual targeting. Now, we know about the entire cookie pool conversation happening around, and if third-party cookie pools are soon going to be redundant, what we see is from the who you are targeting, it will become what you are targeting. And what I mean by
Correct.
that is suddenly you don't really have a certain age number or a city number. You may not have that data available
Correct.
to you
Yeah.
to really go out to those cohorts or to those segments. But what you have is that from a deterministic model, it will be probably towards a probabilistic
Probabilistic.
model. Yeah,
Absolutely.
wherein you know that this kind of a consumer is searching this kind of content, is watching this kind of
Right.
shows, and suddenly we are moving towards contextual targeting, wherein it's about the right placement with the right message, and
Correct.
ensuring that your catchment is also there, which would again lead to a lot of learnings.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, if that's the future, that's where we also have to be. And the third trend, which we have also started dabbling as a brand, is connected TV. So what's happening is more and more penetration of watching OTT content on your television is happening. So we are moving
Right.
away from mobile screens and your tablets and really moving to the big screen. Uh, it's very less right now penetration, but that's the
Yeah.
future again. So as more and more audiences move towards connected TV, it becomes imperative for a brand to also be there. And hence we have already started on that path to really dabble with some budgets kept aside for connected TV and see how it evolves and how our campaigns also work. Because one great advantage that I have as a brand is my TG is 15 to 34. It's urban,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
concentrated to cities, and that's really that's the place where the connected TV is also exploding, right? So as
Correct.
it matures, we mature as a brand, and our campaigns mature as well. So that's the third trend
Correct.
that I definitely see really booming as we go ahead. So yeah, and in the next 5 years, 5 is a very long time when we are talking about this subject because we
True.
both know how quickly things are evolving and
Evolving. Yeah.
changing, and who really knows what all can happen in the next 5 years with and it's just my science buff in me, but with neural link coming in, thanks to Elon Musk, and God knows what all technology is coming in. The future is as crazy as any science fiction novel. But yeah, I would stick to these three bets of privacy, contextual targeting, and connected TV for the future.
Absolutely well said, Prashant. Could not have said better. I think, as you mentioned, safety, privacy, contextual targeting, s- uh, 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 sh- uh, shifting your focus to a world where there is no cookie data available at your end, from a deterministic model to a probabilistic model, is something that we all will be learning as we go along. And the last and
Correct.
not the least, and the most important part is the CTV side of business, where we're seeing a lot of traction or movement happening from the mobile platforms to now the CTV platforms coming into play. And obviously, in the next 5 years, I think that is going to define in terms of where all marketers, such as you, would also be concentrating upon. So great points, Prashant. So this brings us to the conclusion of today's podcast. Thanks, Prashant, for sharing your insights and experiences with us. I'm sure everyone listening into this podcast shall take away a lot of valuable information that you shared with us today and learn from it. With that, I would like to thank you again and would want to wish you a very good evening. And thanks again for being part of this InMobi podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kunik. I think it's a great learning time for all of us with all the changes that are going to happen. So really excited to learn more and see where we are headed. And thank you to you and your
Absolutely.
entire team for organizing this. And thank you for all the listeners as well. Marketing sessions tend to be boring sometimes. So I hope I've not bored people enough. But yeah, it's a great time to be alive. Great time to really understand the guests because it's almost a reset for all of us. And a great time
Right.
to really capture whatever is happening next. So thank you so much for this entire session.